Hello, boys and girls. It's great to be with you again today. A little dreary today as I come to you with my weekly message, so hopefully this will brighten your day a little bit and give you something to do and something to listen to and think about. I've got a great question from one of our friends. His name is Rex, and Rex wants to know this. In the Garden of Eden, why did God make the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? Well, Rex, that's a great question. Let me tell you. The tree with the knowledge of good and evil. Well, the best way to try to explain that to you is to ask you another question. Do you like to make choices in your life? So, for example, if your mom says to you today, Rex, would you like to go outside? I think it's kind of important for you to be able to say, yes, Mom, I'd like to go outside. Or, no, Mom, I don't want to go outside. You see, being able to make choices is very important to human beings. But it also tells us what is important to us as well, and where our hearts lie, and what matters. So when I choose something that's good, that says something about me. If I choose something that's bad, that says something about me too. But in order for me to be free, I have to be able to make one or the other of those choices. If your mother says to you, Rex, do you love me? You are free to say yes, or you're free to say no. Now, knowing you as I do, I have no doubt that your response to your mother would be yes. But that's because you're free and you really believe that you love your mom. And so the same thing is true with God. We have to have the ability, if love is going to be real, if love is going to mean something, to either say yes or to say no. And God gives us both of those choices. We can go to him or we can turn away from him. It is our choice. So you see, Rex, we need the knowledge of good and evil so that we can find our path to love and find our path to God. If we didn't have both options, would we really truly be able to say then that we love God above all else? Think about that for a moment. And I think once you do, you'll realize how necessary having both options really are to us in our relationships, not only with God, but with one another too. I got another great question from Ben. Ben wants to know, where did God come from? Well, Ben, that's a big question. And the only answer I have for you is the most simple one. God always was. You see, God is God because he has no beginning and he has no end. And that's really hard for us as human beings to try to understand because we're so used to seeing something start and something stop. But it's not like that with God. God always was and always will be. And that's something that we just accept on faith and we understand to be true because he is supreme and all-powerful and the creator and maker of all things. I hope that answer helps you too. And lastly, I have a question from Emily, and Emily wants to know, how did God make us? Well, Emily, I know that you're a very special girl and that you care about things very much. When you want to make something, don't you want to put your best into it? I know when you like to color, you like to do your best to stay in lines. You want to make the picture as pretty as it can be. Because when you're done with it, you want to take that and you want to bring it to mom or dad and you want to say, see what I made? Isn't this really nice? And of course, they're going to tell you it is because it is a reflection of you, and it is what you put your effort into. Well, God does the same thing with us. How does God make us? God makes us with the best of what God has, and that's love. He puts his best into us, his very self, makes us his special children, and gives us special work to do. So that's how God makes us, by giving us his special, most perfect gifts. I hope, Emily, that question is answered for you today as well. And so I thought we would share a nice little story. The story today that I want to bring to all of you is called The Donkey That No One Could Ride. And I have a hunch some of you may have read this story before, but it's always a good one to hear again, because I think for each one of us, there are times in our lives where we don't feel that we're all that useful, at least not in the way that we think we could be. So maybe we can learn a lesson again from the donkey that no one could ride. And this story comes to us from a fellow by the name of Anthony DiStefano. And we're very grateful to him for sharing this with us today. So you see, there once was a donkey, young, weak, and small, so weak he could carry nothing at all. Even when children sat on his hide, he'd wobble and tumble and fall on his side. No matter how much he tried or he cried, this was a donkey that no one could ride. He couldn't haul stones, and he couldn't dig ditches. He tried, but he just couldn't do it. Or carry rich men with their bags of riches. He couldn't pull carts with huge bales of hay. Just lifting a feather would make his legs sway. No, this donkey was useless, no good at all. Too puny, too shaky, too scrawny, too small. Imagine. Now the donkey's owner was quite mean and rough. He said to the donkey, "I've had quite enough." He pointed his finger and said with a huff, "You can't lift a person, no matter how light. So take all your things and get out of my sight. Go away from here, donkey. Go away and just hide. What use is a donkey that no one can ride?" So the donkey was led to the far edge of town, pulled by his neck with his head hanging down. He was tied to a post on a small dusty road, and left all alone while his tears overflowed. Left all alone and wondering why he was born to be weak, and born to be shy, and born to be frightened, and born to cry. And so this poor little guy wasn't feeling too good about himself at all. He was feeling that, well, maybe he was just useless. Just then 2 men appeared alongside the post in the village where the donkey was tied. They came without warning on that faithful day. They came and untied him and took him away. The donkey was frightened. He said to the men, "Where are we going?" And he said again, "Where are we going? And what about me? Please leave me alone and just let me be." "Keep quiet," the men said. "We mean you no harm. Just follow us quickly, no cause for alarm." They walked on for miles and miles until they got to a town at the foot of a hill. You know, sometimes when we're not feeling all that good about ourselves, we have to trust someone else to help us, to lead us, like Mom and Dad. who can begin to remind us that we are worthwhile, we are good. Maybe we're not feeling it inside, but we have to trust them and follow them. Do you ever feel that way? At the foot of the hill stood a man tall and thin, wearing a cloak and a beard on his chin. He had eyes that seemed sad and longish dark hair, and a voice soft and gentle that floated on air. He said to the donkey, "It's time that you knew about the great thing that you're destined to do. You'll carry me into the city, we two. Into the city, I'll ride atop you." Who do you think the donkey's talking to? Let's find out. "What's that you say?" cried the donkey with dread. "There's simply no way. You must be misled. I'm just a small weakling. You must go ahead and look for another to take you instead. You see, I'm just hopeless. Ever since I was born, I've been subject to insults and teasing and scorn." Now remember, this is the donkey that no one could ride. He couldn't pull anything and couldn't do much at all. "My back's somewhat crooked, my legs aren't strong. I'm just a big failure who does everything wrong. Won't you believe me?" the sad donkey cried. "Just leave me alone and cast me aside. I'm just a poor donkey that no one can ride." You see, the donkey began to believe what people were telling him, and so he just chalked himself up as one big failure. The man looked at him with a face that was wise, with a tender, warm smile and love in his eyes. And then in a calm and mysterious way, he opened his mouth and started to say, "My help is enough. It's all that you need. It's all you require in life to succeed. The weaker you are, the more strength I give. I'll be there to help you as long as you live. I know you feel tired and frightened and broken, but you believe these words that I have spoken? Do you believe, I ask you again? Do you have faith? I can heal you, my friend." And the donkey is listening with a lot of attention and wonder. For some reason, the donkey was sure he knew the words the man spoke were honest and true. They were said with such kindness and caring and love. It seemed that they came from heaven above. The donkey burst out, "I believe that it's true. I believe," he repeated. "I believe. Yes, I do." The man stretched out his hand and closed both his eyes, and then the little donkey's surprise felt a sensation he couldn't control, from the top of his head right down to his soul. So who do you think the donkey was meeting here? I think it was Jesus. All of a sudden, he realized that now his body was stretching and changing somehow. Most amazing of all, at that very hour, the donkey began to sense he had power. He didn't feel small or weak anymore. Instead, he felt stronger and stronger and stronger. He could feel in his body the energy flowing. He could see with his eyes that muscles were growing. His back felt like iron, his legs felt like steel. His chest felt so strong, it just couldn't be real. You know, sometimes when people point out what we do really well, and they affirm us and love us, it can fill us with such energy and hope, and we can get a real lot of strength from that. It's so important. And that's what Mom and Dad hopes to do for you, to point out what you do well too, so that you can be the best person you are. "It's a miracle, the donkey cried out, a miracle beyond any doubt." In order to show all the thanks that he felt, the donkey bowed his head down and knelt in front of the man who had made him so strong, with a beard on his chin and hair that was long. The man looked upon him with sorrowful eyes, then sat on his back and told him to rise. "We're bound for that city that's west of the hill. I have a great mission I need to fulfill." The donkey got up. His tears had all dried. With big bulging muscles he started to stride, no longer a donkey that no one could ride. Now he had courage and power and pride. He started to stride, he started to run. He couldn't believe he was having such fun. With a clippity-clop and a clippity-clop, he kept right on going with no need to stop. But as they drew near to the gate of the town, the donkey could hear a very strange sound. That curious noise made him perk up his ears. What could it be? It sounded like cheers. Soon crowds of people came into sight, shouting and waving their arms with delight. They were cheering the man and giving him praise, yelling hosannas and crying hoorays. It was amazing to see the love they expressed. They called him a prophet and said he was blessed. In front of the donkey, they threw up their arms, flowers and garments and branches and palms. They laid all these down and started to sing, called the man a savior and king. The donkey was happy, gone were his tears. Never had people sung in his ears. Never was there a moment so sweet as carrying a king with palms at his feet. After all his life after, the donkey rejoiced that the king had made such a wonderful choice. To help with the greatest mission of all, the king used a donkey, young, weak, and small. So every time at Easter time, renew your hopes again. Remember how a little faith can give you strength. And then gather all your friends around and tell the tale of when a tiny donkey carried God into Jerusalem. Kind of looks like my friend Emily. And so we always have to remember that God wants to bring out the best in us because God put the best in us. As I said when I answered Emily's question at the beginning of our chat today, God puts the best in us, so it's already there. We just have to find it. And our parents help us do that. Our friends help us do that. Our brothers and sisters can help us do that. Everyone around us can help us do what we can do at our best. And even though we may seem weak at times, sometimes we don't feel like we have the ability to do much, we really do. For all it takes is trust and a prayer to God to help us be the children He made us to be, and to continue to love and serve Him with our whole mind, heart, and soul. May you have a great week. May you enjoy the rest of today. And, when you're at it, tell Mom and Dad you love them. It's important. God love you. Bye-bye.